Welcome to the Ranchonomics Podcast, where we empower you to build a better ranch and transform your operations into a thriving business. I'm your host, John Haskell. Let's get started.
All right. Good morning. Abbey Bruski, welcome to the Ranchonomics Podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing great, John. How are you today?
I'm very good. It's great to have you here. Abby, I'd like you to give a little introduction to yourself, and then today we're going to talk about emergency planning. And if you'd give a little introduction to yourself and the family ranch, that would be great, and then we'll jump in.
Absolutely, John. Well, I'm Abbey Bruski, and my husband, Ryan Bruski, will be joining us in a little bit. We are third-generation ranchers located in Ekalaka, Montana. We had a big transition year this year. Him and I took over the operating business, and we are leasing that from the land business, which is my father-in-law. And he works for us. He's retired, but he gets to work in our business as a senior advisor and help us do the day-to-day things. And it's a really cool transition we've been able to make happen. It's been a lengthy process, but it's really fun to see where it's at now. We used to be cow-calf. We used to be pretty conventional, and then we made the regenerative change and sold the cows. And now we are custom grazers and stocker enterprise mix. And yeah, so we're pretty darn busy now. So that's what we're doing right now. We're pretty full blown into that. We're really into the sell buy stuff now. And yeah, I guess that's where we're at. We've got 3 children and we are busy.
Good. And I will extend a compliment to you guys. You have a family situation that is incredibly harmonious, and it is really wonderful to see. I know there is some contention maybe in the extended family, but you guys and Joe, your father-in-law, you and Ryan, everybody's kind of on the same page. It's wonderful to see how well things can go when people can decide to get on the same page. So I always want to congratulate people when they can get that done, because it's less common than we hope it would be.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's been a job, and we came from messy succession planning previously, and our huge goal is to clean that up. And like, as we've learned, building generational wealth and legacy, what is our legacy? And so we're really trying to work on that every day.
Yeah, love it. Okay, so one of the things that has come up as we deal with different business owners is the sustainability of the business. And that has, of course, sort of daily implications, but it also periodically runs into, what happens if there is some sort of emergency? So you guys have done some emergency planning. We started a process, I think, last year at our conference. If you wouldn't mind describing kind of how that started and then where you guys have gone with it, because I think you have done an amazing job since that meeting a year ago.
Well, thank you, John. So actually, literally, I brought the binder with me. So when we were at the Ranch Right Winter Retreat Conference last year, John put us in a scenario that had the main players of the business, which is Joe, Ryan, and I, that let's say we're all in a coma and it's costing $150,000 a day per each of us. How is your business going to continue? Who's going to step into that role and make sure things are getting executed? And also financially, are we in a position for that to even happen? And that just was like an aha moment, or like actually was a little petrifying and terrifying to me, because I'm like, we don't have a plan for this if this happens. I think we all work hard in the business every day and do these things. But so no, anyways. And we're at a point where I was like, I don't know what we're going to do. I said, we all know what we're doing, but who's going to step into this role? So it's been a long year, but we've worked really hard on these step by step, getting these binders in place and all these steps handled so that if something happens to us tomorrow, that we can proceed. The business will still be able to run, and our children, which are young, and our family will be taken care of.
So let's get into what have you put in the book? So like you said, the scenario was basically that the principals of the business are incapacitated and it is costing money to keep them alive on life support. And so what did you guys include? Where did you start? How did that begin?
Well, the book begins as it's called an emergency transition plan, and it's an ETP process. And like I stayed in there, if you're reading this, there's been a tragedy in our family, and it walks these people through these step-by-step processes. I hope that people don't have to read this, but it's that what if, and it's one of those books that should hopefully sit on the shelf. I hope it gets dusty. I'm going to keep adding and changing and working on it probably my whole life. But I think it's important that it's there, and it's just that peace of mind that I know that everything will be taken care of. Then I go through a step-by-step process of the important contact information, first of all. So, for example, like as John and I have spoken, Ranch Right is going to be responsible for helping. If something happened to Joe, Ryan, and I, if we died in a car wreck, my mother-in-law, Sonia, is the glue of our family, and she helps with the kids and takes care of things. She would have no idea where everything was at, how to step into these roles. And, we've got 2,000 cattle here right now. What would happen to those animals? Where would they go? How would we get them off the property and get them moved? Because we handle all that stuff. So I have a step-by-step process of, ranch rights information, our tax preparer, our lawyers. Then I go through of our hedge account people, all of the banks and all of the things, all of these people's names are in there. Even the cattle buyers, the truckers, the brand inspectors, everyone's names are in there so that she wouldn't be lost and scrambling and trying to find, where do I even begin with all this stuff? Neighbor help, like people who would help come over, gather the cattle, load the cattle. And I have also contacted these people so that they are aware that you're that person that if something happened, you will be contacted. So
how did people react when you asked them about that?
Thought that I was pretty crazy or ahead of the game, I guess, well, why are you thinking that way? And I said, well, I just want to be prepared. I hope that this doesn't ever happen, but we have no control of tomorrow or today with our life. But I think as long as we're really intentional with every move we make every day, this is being very intentional. So, I guess all the stuff that we do and all this hard work, I guess ask your why or what is it for? If we don't have this stuff all prepared, all we are is just a bunch of busy jobs every day running around. So I think this is really important, this step.
Yeah, very good. And I'll just tell you, one of the reasons we had this discussion last year was because I know of multiple cases where the principal operator of the ranch has died suddenly. One was a lightning strike, one was an accident. I know multiple people over the course of the past couple of years that have had major strokes, all kinds of different things where, terrible illness, where they are effectively debilitated very quickly and unexpectedly. You guys are young, to clarify, so it's not like you guys are 1 foot on the banana peel. Even Joe and Sonia are young, right? They're healthy. There's nothing wrong. But we do see lots of cases where one principal goes down and then a multi-generational business is brought down quickly after it, right? Frankly, the first piece is nobody even knows how to turn on the water, or what they should be looking for with the cattle that are on the place.
Exactly. We had a health scare 2 years ago. My father-in-law had a quadruple bypass. He had some heart problems and an aortic aneurysm. He was borderline. If anything would happen to him on the ranch, we could have lost him in 10 minutes. And so when he went in there and Ryan was with him for the whole week and we didn't know what was going to happen, he was at peace, I think, because we've had a lot of this stuff in place or started, that he knew that the business would be able to continue, that we had procedures and systems in place that were going to help get that rolling. And we have to extend so much gratitude towards Ranching for Profit, our EL board, and Ranch Right helped get us there, because before we had any of those things, no, this would have been a complete disaster if something would have happened. And tragedy does happen to folks even our age. I'm hearing of a lot of people around our age that are already widowed and lost a spouse to a ranching accident, or we just, we never know.
Yep. Agreed. So what else is included in the book?
So I've allowed all the passwords and online accesses to like our pasture maps, rainfall insurance. Everything, all of those details are listed at the basics. All the banking information even. So now I have 2 books. So some of my books are a little more detailed than the others. The big book that has all of the big information in it, those go to like Ranch Right's going to hold a copy. The person who's going to be in charge of this, like taking over the trust and things, those people are in charge of that. Lawyers have a big copy. It's some of those big moves. Now I have just a risk management book that will go in the shop. And that's more for my guys, like my truckers, my help, the people that are going to come in, and to be constantly updating my map systems so that they can find the cattle if something happens. We're 12,000 acre ranch. So it's kind of like, where would we even begin to find them? They'd find them eventually. So first of all, then I have the banking information, our loans, etc. And then I dive into all the people stuff, the health insurance, and, all those stuff that everyone has. Where does all these things belong? So I put all these big things in this book. And then the deeds, water rights, etc., those big things, life insurance, who's going to get those. And then I dove into those maps. And those maps, we've really worked hard the past few months to update these because, we've added like 90 water sources.
Right. You've done a lot of water development.
We've dove into water. And if I wasn't there helping build it, and I wasn't there for all of it, I wouldn't even know where to begin.
Yep.
So this kind of brought us into that moment where Ryan sent me one time and said, I need you to go shut this valve off. And I was like, okay. And I get there and there were 3 valves there. So that was my description. Go shut that one valve off that runs that tank. I was like, okay. So I get out there and apparently I shut the wrong valve off because my directions either weren't good or no, the big thing is our systems weren't in place and it wasn't labeled properly. And so I was like, I wasn't there when you built it. I have no idea where things are going. So we've worked hard on the place now and we still have work to do. We're not complete, but we've marked every, valves that are out of the place with like an ear tag and have labeled what this does. Even the pastures are labeled now out on the signs physically because who would even know? I know where the yard place is, but who else is going to know that if you came onto our property? And so we've labeled the pastures really well and we're broke down to a lot of paddocks now. And so we've kind of helped guide people through that. And then like we have all these spigot points because we do a lot of portable systems in the summer. So we have to have all these marked now and we've got storage tanks and where do all these lines run? So that was a big deal for me because I said, I don't even think my neighbor would know where to go find that. And some of these lines were put in way before my time. So this has been really good for us to backtrace and figure out our water system. That's quite a deal to map those.
Oh, man, I know. The sad part is it's a real pain. It would be great if there was an easy way to do it, but it's a headache. But that said, if you've ever dealt with underground pipe and trying to locate it 20 years later, once the grass grows back and stuff, it's hard to figure out where it is. So
it sure is. And we are very pipeline dependent. And like I said, we've had issues where you have to go dig. And where do you start digging if you got to go find the leak? So that's been really a good peace of mind to have that piece working on. And we're still continuing and adding. So I think the big piece is making sure that these maps stay updated and don't update them every 10 years. They need to be, that needs to be an annual process as every year we change and do things.
Yep.
So that's a big piece in my book there. Also, even in the yards and the places, I've tried to go in on Google Maps and zoom in on the property because like well pits, if you don't know where those live, there's a lot of valves and things going on in well pits that I had no idea what those were, but we've had wells go down. So we've had to go in there and really clearly mark what's running what and where things are supposed to be going. So yeah, that's been quite a process, but it's really good because we have a lot of well pits and even water to your house. I mean, who knows where to shut those off, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of those steps and I'm like, wow, I don't even know where some of this stuff is. So I always tell the boys, I said, if I die tomorrow, I want you to know where this is at. So I'm always trying to, and they laugh and say, oh yeah, haha. But I'm like, no, really, I need you to know where these things are at. It's a peace of mind for me.
Yep. Well, and let's go into that a little bit. Have we covered most of what's in the book?
I've got, most of the book, like I said, I've dove into, we even have I'm way over planning, but I don't know if you can ever be over planned, but I made everyone do their funeral arrangements because I said, when we're grieving, I don't want any of my family to plan that for me. Brand records, leases, and all these things need to be in there.
Yep.
And assets, all those things. So it's a pretty big book and I feel like it keeps growing. So I've even gone to a step where I've written letters to all my children too. That's just an extra step. And so if I miss something, they can open some letters on some major life events.
At Ranch Right LLC, we believe your ranch deserves more than just survival mode. You deserve to thrive. Our experienced accountants and business coaches will help you get control over your financials so you can focus on what you do best, running the ranch. We offer a comprehensive process that includes bookkeeping, consulting, and even training tailored to your needs. Don't let your financials slow you down. Visit ranchrightllc.com to schedule your free consultation and let Ranch Right take care of the numbers so you can take care of the rest of it.
All right. The next thing I want to talk about is a little bit about why. When I think about this and the situations I have seen up close, when we have some sort of catastrophe happen, first off, we usually have, sort of burden people enough with grief and that sort of thing when something terrible happens. So your spouse dies, right? Well, great. There's a bunch of stuff to take care of the surviving spouse afterwards. I think about this with my wife as an example. But one of the things I really don't want to have happen is her to make a bunch of critical decisions and have to really figure things out at that time. Because it's debatable sometimes, depending on the day, my wife might celebrate my death or might be sad. I think she'll be at least a little sad. But no, I really don't want her to have to deal with, grief on top of now I've got to figure everything out. And so I think what you're doing is making the burden on the people that are left behind significantly less. I don't doubt you have neighbors and friends that will jump in and help. But man, if you can make it as easy as possible for them, because they've obviously just, lost a friend or whatever, or a family member. So fast forward 10 years, your kids are now, teenagers. You and Ryan have passed. Like the last thing you want is for them to have to, start to figure things out from scratch. So I think giving them a leg up there is a huge advantage. Does that kind of make sense?
Absolutely. And I don't think children are in the right place at that age to make these huge decisions and deal with a bunch of assets. So especially I've got young children, but I think in any situation, sometimes passing these things on can be a burden to people if it's not structured and put together nicely. And so that's what, like I said, we're dealing with messy succession previously, and that's okay. That was what happened at the time. A lot of the previous generations, I think they didn't want to talk about it. I almost think it was almost like fear of, if we have a retirement or succession plan, we're going to die. Like we will no longer have our purpose.
If you talk about it, it'll happen, right?
Yeah. And that's definitely not the case.
Word to the wise, you're probably going to die. Like that's one of those things, like maybe not next week, but it's going to happen eventually. So
I always say we're guaranteed death and taxes. And so, yes, that's happening, but we just need to have strategy and plan for these things. And it's not something we want to talk about, but man, I sleep better at night knowing that my family is going to be okay because we do have the systems and procedures in place. And I don't think it's ever fully complete. I think we're always going to be working on this and adding because life changes, we evolve. And so I think this is always going to be getting updated, but I think it's a start. I've got something, I have a plan, and everyone is aware of this plan and they know where it's at. Also, another thing for me is make multiple copies because our house could burn down, right? So don't just have one copy and don't put it somewhere where people have no idea where to find. I've heard of horror stories where succession wasn't set up good because they couldn't find the wills and, things were split up or all these things. And so I think, yes, make multiple copies, put them in safety deposit boxes or other places too. And also another thing, find the dang keys for the safety deposit boxes and put them all in a place where everybody knows, because that was a mess I'm dealing with is finding a bunch of keys, and so it's a lot of that, I think. And like I said, we're all guaranteed death, and that's okay if we come to peace with that and live life to the fullest and really be intentional with our moves every day in life. John did a really cool thing at Ranch Right for us at our winter retreat this year on our age. And I know I'm young and stuff, but no, he kind of helped show what average American male was living to. And you times it and figure that out by how many days. It gives you an idea of how many days we have left. And now we could have less or more than that. But that was like a wow moment for us because it's like some days I can't wait for the day to be over. I'm just like, oh, is this done? But no, I really want to be very more intentional. Every single day is a gift. And we need to be really intentional with all the moves we make. And it really has an effect for our future and for our children. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, it is a big deal. That's cool. Very, very good. All right. Anything else we want to talk about with regard to this? Again, I think you guys have done a fantastic job with this piece. I want to emphasize that this is part of a larger succession planning effort that also includes legal and accounting type things, right? So there's tax planning, there's will, that sort of thing. All that stuff is a little separate. This is much more operationally focused and just, how do we keep the day-to-day going, even if we have a setup already for the actual ownership transition, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I totally agree, John. I think they both go very hand in hand. I think there's a lot of people that don't have this stuff in place. It's that stuff we put off because it's not the fun stuff to do. None of us really like to do this stuff. Actually, I've teared up a lot writing a lot of this stuff because it's just that I don't want to think about it, but it is really important that we have this done. But I agree with you. That's why I would call this more of a risk management process where we're making sure that the land, the cattle, even like who's going to feed the dogs, where's the dog food, who's going to take care of the dogs. There's a lot of that stuff that's like, no one thinks about that. And so we have all those in place and in a book ready to go. And then we have some of those that I have one to you guys and to the lawyers and to everyone else that's much more in depth and detailed.
Yes.
That has all that stuff, like you said. But I think multiple copies of that is really important. And without that process, I don't know how you can begin on some of this other stuff anyways. So I think it's really important.
That's awesome. Good. And little Ryan here behind you he's got a big smile when you talk about it. So there you go.
Yeah, he does. Our children are a big part of our why, and it's ranch and legacy. And I really liked where you go with, generational wealth. And I believe that this is hopefully setting us up for years of generations to have an opportunity on the operation.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Abbey, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being willing to not only work on it, but also talk about it. I think the example you guys provide and what you have done in your business in a fairly short time is really incredible. So congratulations to you guys for doing so much good work on it. And I can't wait to see kind of the things you guys come up with as you continue to go forward in the future.
Well, I appreciate that, John. A big one that I have to shout out to is the succession and estate planning school that Ranching for Profit puts on. They only are doing like one more that I know of in March. Dave Pratt taught it, and he got us in the right mindset for this. Because I think first, a lot of people aren't even in the right mindset for this. And this is like challenging paradigms and something that actually it was really cool of Joe, really, because we approached him 2 or 3 years ago and asked if he was ready for the transition role, and he wasn't quite ready yet. Then when we went to this school, he went with Sonia and I. And when we went to that school, he's like, why didn't I do this 10 years ago? And so it really kind of helped wow. So it got us in the right mindset that it is okay to watch the succession take place and not at the grave. Actually watch this happen and all of your hard work, get to see it become something. And I think that retiring to something concept that we are taught is huge, because a lot of us aren't going to just leave the ranch, go buy a boat or move away. We like to be here. This is our lifestyle. It's what we want to do. So it's all figuring out how we all blend and fit together. And that's what really helped push this book, and it keeps all of us on a page. And I think it's really important too on the front of this is to make sure that your mission and vision and goals are in front of our book too. It's our purpose and our why. So I think it really lets everyone know who's stepping into these shoes for us, this is why we did what we did. These are intentions.
Yeah, that's awesome. I am trying to find it right now. I can't find the date. If I will add a link in the comments to that succession planning school from RFP. They have done those for years. That is a good school. I cannot find it right now, but I'll try to get some info in on it.
Awesome. And like I said, and then Ranch Right, you guys have helped us every year that's getting pushed to that next level. I thought I had all this, my ducks in a row. Nope, you just throw more on me. So I'm I've got more work to do. So I don't think this is ever something that's totally complete, but I do believe that this is something that we need to always keep updating and can do better at. I don't think it's ever 100% done.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Sounds good. Well, Abbey, thank you so much for being willing to talk today. I really appreciate it. I think both of us probably have kids that are starting to rouse and we better go. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you for working on this. I'd like to say I'm excited to see where you guys go, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Awesome. I appreciate it, John. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for tuning into the Ranchnomics podcast. We hope this episode helped you win today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with a friend.